We are live shortly.
Okay. Shortly मतलब हुआ कि नहीं?
ये मिडल का वे है saying that की stand by.
Okay.
I'm going to hit live.
Yeah, we are live now.
We are live now.
We are?
Okay.
We are.
Perfect. So, like, subscribe, ask questions. We'll try and do all of that. And today, we have Vishy.
Yes.
Because we have the most, he's interviewed the management of the most traded stock.
Not only traded stock, a company which has the most number of shareholders also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes Bank.
Yeah, you and I were checking that the other day. Individual shareholders बहुत हैं.
हाँ बहुत मतलब बहुत रोने वाले शेयर मतलब लोग 1500 में खरीदे हैं कुछ उसमें से और अभी वो 20 में है.
तो अब देखते हैं अभी तो 2150 का तो प्राइस दे रहे हैं SMBC. So let's see how much more they can push ahead. But the interview itself was, I mean, he could say only what he could say. Currently, the transaction has been cleared by the buyer and the seller. Buyer being SMBC, Sumitomo Mitsui Banking Corporation, for people who don't know. Japan ka second largest lender. And financial services group, and globally they're the 15th largest, and State Bank of India, which is India's largest lender, and used to be or is currently Yes Bank's largest shareholder at 24%. So they are looking to sell 13.19%, and the other banks who had entered Yes Bank back in 2020, ICICI, HDFC Bank, Axis, Bandhan, Federal, all of them had chipped in capital to support the bank. They are selling 6.81%. So totally milake 20% is what SMBC is buying. Valuation wise, this is currently at 2150 a share. This is about 13,500 odd crore. And total valuation for Yes Bank is over 67,000 crore, close to 67,400 something. Is the valuation of Yes Bank at this price, which is not very far from where it is right now, which is 66,000 crore के आसपास है. So valuation wise, yeah, pretty good price for SMBC.
I think this is a secondary market transaction.
Yes,
between
it
two,
is.
right? I mean, then there's no open offer for the
There's no
investors.
open offer for investors.
But
yeah.
we should look at it from a point of view of a shareholder who's going to keep it here.
Yeah.
Because it will, SMBC will become the largest shareholder in
Yes.
any case. And at some point in time, SMBC India will consolidate because you can't
Correct.
have two operations running parallel,
Correct.
right? I mean, that's an RBI regulation.
Correct.
So it's a 2-year plan or 18 months plan. Let's put it this
Let's put it that way. Like it's a reasonably medium term plan, and Japanese lenders in general are a very patient long term. I mean, one may say too slow, but the other way to look at it is that they stick around and they stay invested where they invest. They take some time because this deal itself has taken over 14 months to actually now reach this stage. Right, last year at some point in time they started this conversation, and finally now because the problem was also voting rights. RBI caps voting rights to 26%.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how much your stake is, you can still only vote 26%. So that allows you to block any proposals that you don't agree with, but usse zyada there's no other power. It's not like you can single-handedly move something. The expectation is that at some point in time, SFMG Credit India, which is the NBFC that SMBC owns in India, 54,000 crore ka uska book hai. That will merge into Yes Bank, and through that the shareholding of SMBC will rise to 40% plus, and then they become the official promoters.
Just correct me. When Yes Bank has a book of nearly 2 lakh crore or something?
2.46.
2.46 and 56 मतलब एक साल लेके चलो कि अगर 10% ग्रोथ के साथ भी है तो 1/4 addition मतलब dilution would mean even if you look at the book value dilution which is there means it will get diluted by another 25% going forward.
That if this deal happens, yes, that is the kind of dilution that you can expect.
And we already complained that Yes Bank में already so much of dilution हो चुका है कि stock price भागता नहीं है ऊपर को.
So one of the things he said was this, that through SFMG Credit India, rural and semi-urban market is covered. They're an NBFC that specifically targets that space. Through SMBC's existing India business, which is 4 branches, 3 local branches hai and 1 in Gift City. So through these 4 branches, they tackle some of the largest corporates in the country. They lend, they also do other kind of financing services that are there. For Yes Bank, two markets that they currently don't have that much access to opens up. For SMBC, that middle part, which is a very large middle part in India, that gets covered thanks to Yes Bank because it's a banking operation. So you have a deposit license, so cost of funds remains under control. They are a fairly profitable bank right now, primarily because they've just offloaded all the NPAs to that ARC 2.5 years ago. They did that deal. तो JC Flowers को उन्होंने बेच दिया था 48,000 crore के loans, bad loans. So in essence, it's a fairly profitable franchise, which currently growth path is the problem. That was not very visible. Now, in the interview, he's also spoken about 1% ROA because that is something that they have been missing continuously. He's saying by FY27, that is exit FY27, they should hit 1%.
Those are.
Yeah,
but
1%.
But that's not going to happen, right, in that sense, because if that entire transaction goes through and the merger goes through, then in FY27 end up, your book is expanded and you will still not be able to meet the ROA of 1%.
I mean, so his hope is that the 1% ROA will come in by that time. So one could assume that maybe the deal is post that. क्योंकि एक बार आप 1% hit कर लो उसके बाद you look good, then you do the dilution, whatever you want to do. Because then, you know, as a franchise, you're running well.
Never been a fan of highly diluted recovery stories. They've not usually worked out very well.
That is
For
true.
all the confidence that people had when Yes Bank got a set of investors, it saved the bank, yes. Chalo, let's put it that way.
It saved the depositors.
But look at the equity valuation.
One thing that was very interesting was 2 years ago when they did the Carlyle Advent deal, right? Private equity players.
It's 19 rupees में कितने मिल रहा है?
It's at 18 years something पे उन्होंने बेचा था. So at that time that was like a big deal. So they were talking about it a lot. And then in today's interview he said that SMBC is not like a private equity investor where short term में हम लोग भाग जाएंगे. So that was very interesting to me because you just invited two large private equity firms to come into your bank, and then now you're saying, but you know, it's not like private equity. This is a patient capital. It stays with you for a very long time. उसमें से I think Carlyle is they've sold stake. They each acquired about 10% each, and then they've sold stake after that. So their shareholding has fallen. One thing that was interesting to me is interesting to me right now, you talked about the recovery stories not being that successful, right? This is an RBI recovery story. You have to remember this, that the Reserve Bank of India front-ended this entire thing and ensured that सब कुछ उनके rules के हिसाब से हो, right? So then it is also a referendum on how capable the regulator is to turn around a story. And I mean, I want to see what happens because whether the CEO will continue or not, we will have to see that.
My point is that, you know...
Sir, last point on Yes Bank. पूरा show Yes Bank.
Just share all the bank. My point is that, you know, from a turnaround point of view, yes, it's turned profitable, right?
Yeah.
So RBI point of view, say they have safeguarded the depositors in that sense.
Yeah.
From an investor who came for reconstruction, उनको double the amount मिल रहा है. 10 रुपए में आए थे अभी.
हाँ, but वो तो उनको base price पे मिला था, इसके लिए double हो रहा है ना.
तो उस समय अगर नहीं होता तो नहीं आते ना. तो रिटर्न तो उनको मिला है. अब 4-5 साल में को डबल हो गया आपका इन्वेस्टमेंट.
वो आपको नहीं मिला ना सर. अगर आप रिटेल इन्वेस्टर होते तो आप तो नहीं ले पाए थे ना.
क्योंकि जब
टॉकिंग फ्रॉम द आरबीआई पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू,
जब वो बैंक्स को इशू किया था तो ऐसा नहीं था कि बाकी
इट्स अ रेफरेंडम ऑन द आरबीआई. फ्रॉम आरबीआई's point of view, they are tick box everything, right, in that sense.
I mean, I have to see what happens.
पर आप बताइए सर, आज डिफेंस HAL, how did you see the HAL numbers?
ठीक था, मतलब सारे लोगों ने तो बोला कि सब कुछ ठीक ही है यार. ये इन पे अभी क्या ही बोलोगे लोग. आप फिलहाल द मोमेंटम इज सो स्ट्रॉन्ग, ऑर्डर बुकिंग विल पिक अप होपफुली. सो ये राइट नाउ इट इज द राइजिंग टाइड व्हिच इज.
आपको लगता है वो इट्स सेम थिंग मींस व्हाट वी सॉ मे बी 4 quarters बैक जहाँ पर डिफेंस एकदम भाग रहा था. सेम थिंग इज कमिंग.
उतना तो पता नहीं, बट देखो आप यार, ये दिस इज सो आई मीन आर्ग्यूएबली दिस इज द स्ट्रॉन्गेस्ट कॉन्फ्लिक्ट that we've had.
Yeah.
If this can't spur defense ordering, then I don't know what can, right? Per se, part 1. And part 2, if in some sense if you look at it, company after company has put out on social media their capabilities, what they've done,
Correct.
etc. and stuff like that. India is no longer shy of that, which means that India is telling the world that yes, we are making it for ourselves. We have now been successful. If you want, come and contact us. Proof of concept ho gaya. Now we have the size to be able to
Correct.
make stuff that has worked for us beautifully for you at a very good cost. Come and buy it from us.
You know, I was just looking at the HL numbers, and I think they have a con call on Saturday. If I think Elara kar raha ho. What was interesting for me was that they have an order book of 1.8 lakh crores. 6 years, last 12 month revenue. Negative working capital of 190 days, sitting on 32,000 crores. You know,
And a moat around the business.
Yes.
Wow.
And a moat around the business. Nobody can just come in and set up another HAL.
Yes. So that's the thing which was, you know, striking for me. And they got some 30-40,000 crores of Sukhoi orders. मतलब new 12 Sukhoi के अलग से आए हैं और engines 200 के ऊपर engines चाहिए Sukhoi के लिए क्योंकि the engines have to be done, and then there are maintenance, regular maintenance which is coming in. So there is a huge order book which we've been talking about, right? Means the order book आएगा है उनकी फैक्ट्रीज रन करने के लिए 6 साल के लिए है.
Yeah.
So you have that long run up which
yeah.
is there. The question is that are they going to be able to scale it up in terms of revenue from here, and what all they can do? I think
if you do a foreign deal, how much of the domestic capability is involved in that? Let's say if you like, for example, a Rafale deal happened. When you do something like that.
So in that case, the MRO entirely comes to you.
Okay.
Basically.
Okay.
It depends upon most of the foreign deals which happen actually.
Yeah.
Is government to government. It's not
Correct.
government to private
Correct.
company. It's government to government which
Correct.
happens. So our PSU is the maintenance arm, or you know, a government arm is the maintenance arm for them. Over and above that, if there is a transfer of technology that happens, like in the case of Sukhoi when we did, this is the second version which we are talking about, right? So the transfer of technology and everything, it increases the capability of producing this kind of thing. What is happening much more now is that earlier everything from a bolt to the wing to the glass of the cockpit
Everything
was
would be
made by HAL.
Okay.
Now it's getting outsourced to various private entities and public sector entities.
Okay.
So that capability is now moving. That ecosystem has now grown. You know,
Expanded,
expanded in that sense. So, you know, we always talk about, you know, if you remember, 3-4 साल पहले strategic partner का जो आया था, Ministry of Defense ने निकाला था. उसमें HAL is like a system integrator now. It has the technology. It will teach its line vendors how to do it, and you come and integrate and get it. So that is the thing. It's over a period of time, it's not going to become asset heavy. It's going to become asset like relative to the kind of order book it's going to do.
मुझे पता है क्या, I mean last point here, मुझे ऐसा लग रहा है कि in these stocks or these businesses, it will never be a question of whether धंधा होगा कि नहीं.
धंधा तो होगा.
Stock ऊपर नीचे वैल्यूएशन मल्टीपल के हिसाब से जाएगा. ग्रोथ मुझे लगता है कि सब लोग को दिख रहा है. 6 साल का ऑर्डर बुक, 5 साल का ऑर्डर बुक. इनफैक्ट देयर वाज अ रिपोर्ट दैट सजीत शेयर्ड फॉर शिपयार्ड्स.
Yes.
2.4 lakh crore of order inflow in the next 2 years. Right? That's large. तो ऑर्डर इनफ्लो तो है, पता है. और अभी इसमें तो एक्सपोर्ट मैप्ड इन नहीं है. That will also now come in with this. So it will always be a question of कि आप कितना मल्टीपल देना चाहते हो इनको. Some notes are saying we at our target price is 44 times FY27 EPS. और 45 times FY27, and some people will say कि नहीं 30 times के ऊपर क्यों देना चाहिए. So
you know, इसमें exports जो है 23-24,000 crores we did in FY25. Officially target 40,000 crores का FY30 तक. But the kind of potential which is
they will
there,
overshoot.
They will overshoot.
Massively overshoot.
So next set of IPOs is what? Defense startups.
Defense startup नहीं. So defense ordnance companies have been classified into 7 or 8.
Okay.
It's been ORB जिसको हम कहते हैं, right?
Okay.
उसको corporatize हो चुका है 3 साल पहले. Now you'll see one by one those coming
into the market.
A lot of people are excited about seeing Sajeet sir today, so which is very good thing. Sajeet sir, Lalita and Rijul Garg. So okay, and okay, no Sajeet, no party. So ये किसने बोला? हमने पार्टी की बात कर रहे हैं.
Fireworks की बात कर रही है.
Okay, Rishi, just one quick word because Harsh speaks about this a lot of times. हम लोग banking की बहुत बात करते हैं. To your mind, based on the commentary that you've seen thus far, whether banks or NBFCs, is there a material positive out there?
Yeah, there is. What you're seeing right now is the elements of a consumption revival which are coming together. Now, they are elements, so they have to actually fructify into actual consumption. But you're seeing lower inflation. You are seeing growth story remaining fairly robust. You're also seeing, you will see the government's tax boost come into the market in a few months. Deposit rates lower हैं तो लोगों को बैंक पे पैसा रखने की कोई compulsion नहीं है, so they can use it to come out. Then I don't know how much of that goes into the market and how much goes into consumption. But these are all elements that are going to boost some level of spending, which is what we sorely need because urban consumption has been weak for over a year now, and at some point in time that has to turn.
It's so beautiful. Now people say कि पैसा अगर सेविंग्स में है, how much will go into consumption, how much will go into market, we don't know. 6 साल पहले this was never a question कि नहीं इसमें से पैसा ऐसा
6 साल पहले तो banks were so confident that deposits are never going to be touched. Discretionary spending is over and above. So
30-35% अभी household savings से सीधा markets में आ रहा है.
Yeah, exactly.
Market financial institution.
Which by the way is scaring the RBI, but yeah, that's the other thing because there's been a fundamental shift in Indians' mentality. And that is because your financial system is sorely underprepared for it, which was very visible in the last 2 years when banks were just running like headless chicken. Deposit nahi hai bhai. So where is that money? Why is that money not coming to us?
Yeah, but so, you know the classic debate that a lot of people will make, and people are skeptics, is that why is it that banks have to earn a particular margin? ये तो चलो लेगेसी है कि इतना निम्स कमाता है, इतना मार्जिन है, मत कमाओ. आपका धंधा क्या है? आपको पैसा आ रहा है, आप डिस्बर्स कर रहे हो, डिस्बर्सल बराबर करो. डोंट नीड टू अर्न सच अ मार्जिन.
It's just like Aisha saying मेरे को वॉल्यूम चाहिए अभी मार्जिन रहने दो.
No, but I'm just saying, right? The money, ideally, in a utopian scenario,
4% क्यों चाहिए नहीं? 2% करो.
Utopian scenario, money should follow the highest port of return in a safe fashion, risk just avoided, right? So if bank deposits are not giving that, why should people go in bank deposits?
Absolutely.
पहले होता था ठीक है, अभी चेंज करो.
पर अभी देखो ना उसमें अगर आप शेड्यूल कमर्शियल बैंक देखोगे या फ्रंटलाइन बैंक देखोगे तो आपको सेविंग्स रेट 2.75 कुछ मिलता है और स्मॉल सेविंग्स बैंक देखोगे तो 7.5.
So the counter to that is banks बोलते हैं कि कोई सेविंग्स में डिपॉजिट इंटरेस्ट के लिए नहीं लगता है. Everybody keeps money there only because they want to spend that money eventually. So easy access. हाँ अब हो रहा है तो now suddenly अरे बाप रे ये क्या हो गया?
Yeah, I mean this debate can go on, of course, but okay, so that's an interesting point. Now, very quickly, either of you, and Sajeet, first you, and then we'll talk about some of the pharma names later on. But first, very quickly, consumption pe. This quarter, in the conversations that you would have done, anything that stood out in consumption? Because as Vishy said, though today Aisha call said that rural is doing strong, urban hopefully will pick up.
Will pick up.
Anything that you've stood out?
You know, I was looking at Aisha, I was looking at Berger. ये दो के बाद देख रहा था मैं. Berger numbers very good for me. Means in the sense they've been able to double their retail footprint in 1 quarter, and their tinting machines have gone up by 25% in 1 quarter in Q4 alone, and that's what is boosting the numbers for them. 7.4% volume growth है. मतलब you know we are talking about Asian Paint जब हो रहा था हम सोचे थे क्या हो रहा है.
By the way, please send questions if you have questions.
Yeah, so that's one. The second one was Aisha. Aisha में they are having an issue with respect to the pricing which is there for volume को maintain. You know we were talking about that fair market share जो leaders हैं वो will try to maintain that in the particular segment. That is exactly what is happening here also. HAL करता है अपने FMCG में, Aisha कर रहा है अपने उसमें. Even if it means that you're going to compromise on the margins maybe 100 or 200 bips, they are doing it so that when the tide turns they are able to go back. But 1% 25% टॉप लाइन बढ़ा है, 24% वॉल्यूम की वजह से और 1% प्राइसिंग की वजह से, एंड दे हैव बीन एबल टू दे आर अब्सॉर्बिंग द कॉस्ट एट दिस पॉइंट इन टाइम, एंड कंपटीशन TCS से TVS से बहुत है उसमें. सो that segment of consumption which he is talking about, it's there. The same thing, and it's the same segment or that what you call TAM, target audience, which also goes for cars in the 12 to 20 lakh category as well, right? So वहाँ पर भी competition बहुत बढ़ गया है. And this is what Tata Motors were telling us, that their market share in that time is around 30%, while overall EV were 55%. And they're trying to push more products in that so that they get a higher market share. So there is a huge competition which is coming in for that revival of this consumption, urban consumption, what do you call it, a premium consumption, whether it's in rural में है या फिर urban में, वो आ रहा है. और rural में especially वो है क्योंकि there's a monsoons have been good, crop has been good, and so there's a cash flow which is coming in there. So वो cash use हो रहा है उधर. So yes, there is a rural demand which, but urban I'm still not so clear on कि अगले 2 quarter में वापस आएगा क्या.
2 quarter तो मुझे मुश्किल लग रहा है, but see, there's a overall shift in monetary policy which usually translates into some amount of consumption growth over I think 3 or 4 quarters. Usually 1 साल लगता है कम से कम, 1 साल के आसपास लगता है before your rate cuts, your liquidity boost, all of this translates into actual borrowing, actual spending that follows later. Because that is usually the time when the RBI will say, okay, I'll pause, let me see how this progresses and let me see if there is any amount of overeating that is happening. So overeating ke time pe, then you will tighten again. So that cycle has to happen. Abhi 2 rate cut hua hai, let's see.
Yeah, he's talking very interesting point which Tata Steel also mentioned when I was talking to TV Narendran. There was an announcement which said that they're going to invest $2.5 billion in subsidiaries. So मैंने पूछा कि what is this $2.5 billion in subsidiaries? So he said that we're converting our overseas debt, which is in dollar, to rupee debt, and it's basically refinancing which is happening. So what he's saying that rates are going to come is coming down. Companies are now looking at how to convert that overseas because overseas rates are very high. It's not coming down, and Fed is not going to bring in one cut की बात कर रहे हैं हम 2025. So the rates are high, and Indian companies who were earlier depending on foreign debt because that used to be lower, now are coming. De-dollarization हो रहा है.
Got it. Okay. Now, very quickly, we'll take questions on specific stocks, but just before that, just keep in mind, and I would love for our Mridul or whoever else to drop the interview of Blue Jet. And the reason I say this, guys, because there were 2 or 3 pharma names today. Piramal didn't do well, Lupin was okay. Blue Jet was up 10% because in the commentary they have guided to some stellar growth numbers. Their gross margins have shot up. Their EBITDA margins moved from 29 to 41 or thereabouts, something like that. Crazy expansion, and they believe that this will sustain. Very good performance and more to come. And therefore, the common thread that I thought was the case this earnings season: Sai Life, Blue Jet, then a Loras, then Ami Organics CDMO division, a Naveen Fluorine CDMO division. CDMO businesses have done exceptionally well, and the guidance and the commentary is very strong. So that's maybe one bucket that you got to keep an eye out for the commentary and the delivery in quarter 1 and quarter 2. Very strong performance.
Just for the viewers, Blue Jet makes that contrast for MRIs and others. And now that we are seeing a healthcare premiumization which is coming in where radiology picking up, it's one of the leading players providing that kind of contrast and all. So that's also one of the reasons why you've been seeing a good which is there. Yeah.
Okay. Questions. So please share your view on holding companies. Any trigger left for them? Please throw light on Bombay Burma. Kshitij Shukleja is asking. Kshitij, my limited view out here is that holding companies there is every 5 years there is a trigger that comes. And the trigger is not known, can't be predicted with the trigger that comes, which suddenly makes people realize that holding companies are trading at a substantial discount and the discount needs to be narrowed a little bit. वो रैली में आप खेल लिए तो खेल लिए, otherwise
क्योंकि होल्डिंग कंपनी आपको कुछ देता नहीं है,
बट हमेशा वैल्यूएशन डिस्काउंट
देता है। वो कब 50-60%, वो जब 70-80% हो जाता है तो कुछ कोई ट्रिगर आ जाता है एक व्हाट्सएप में और उसके बाद होल्डिंग,
या फिर किसी कंपनी का आईपीओ आने वाला है तो उसका जो होल्डिंग कंपनी है
on holding, a few years ago, the RBI really pushed for the wholly owned subsidiary model, right? What was it called? Non-financial holding company वाला concept लेके आए थे. And then now, they're all, नहीं, अभी वापस, start merging that. So you saw all your SFBs do that, bring it back. But then I don't understand this thing that a non-financial holding company, non-financial, non-operational holding company has to own majority stock in a listed bank, and then they will ensure that there is some amount of corporate governance structure. I think this is complete on because it's the same people who sit here and there. So I don't know if there is a governance problem in your core bank. It doesn't matter who's sitting on top. You're still going to see problems.
Okay. Is it becoming difficult to understand how Berger is doing better than Asian Paints? Opus should ideally have affected second, third, fourth player more than the number one leader.
We mentioned about Berger, I was mentioning that, right? And they added some 550 retail stores, and that's over 1,000 retail stores at the end of Q4. Some 8,000. They've taken a tinting machine to 8,000, and they added nearly 2,500 in Q4 there. So the total volume growth is coming because of the retail growth which is happening there, and I think that will play out in FY26 because काफ़ी सारे तो अभी पाइपलाइन में होंगे, pipeline is there, filling the pipeline जिसको कहते हैं हम in this manufacturing business. So I think that will be there, but it's going to be a tough ask for Asian Paints to maintain the market share because they lost market share, and Berger is saying that they've gained market share.
Yeah, so
they gained market share by nearly 80 bips. That's what they're saying in the decorative business.
So it's interesting, but yeah, I mean, there's no clear answers, I would reckon. Per se. Sorry, I mean, it's about what we can say CSE Bulls. Ayush Agarwal is asking for Adani Green Energy target of 6 to 7 gigawatts addition in FY26, out of which 4 gigawatts till Q1 as per con call. So what's the view on the execution plan when the monsoon is expected to be above normal? Second half I mean, if the execution picks up, then maybe they hit those numbers.
Yeah, I mean, they have a massive capex plan.
Standard disclaimer, by the way, group company, owned by Adani Group.
But I think they have a massive expansion plan which is spread up to FY31.
हाँ, but बोल रहा है FY26 में होगा कि नहीं? मेरे हिसाब से हो जाएगा ये number. I think they are very gung-ho about meeting the targets easily.
Yeah.
So seems to be okay, on track. Even though the numbers that you mentioned, Ayush, are interesting, but I reckon this should be possible. Okay. This is an interesting one. Tejas Gambhir is asking, last two questions. Went India OFS, right? Promoter selling such a big chunk. The last time this happened was in Whirlpool.
Yes.
Whirlpool sold a very large stake. और वो 1200 पे बेचा, stock गया 2200 पे. So that's a different story. But this is a very large.
I think, but Vent is coming out with an OFS at a 30-36% discount to market price.
35% discount to market. But करना ही पड़ेगा, इतना बड़ा चंक बेच रहा है. Half of the 70% stake is being sold.
And the worst part is that Coromandel International, which owns 37.5%, is not buying that chunk. I think Samit was telling me that Vent wanted to sell it to Coromandel, but Coromandel doesn't want to buy at this price.
तो ये deleveraging के लिए करते हैं ये सब?
नहीं. So Vent is a privately owned company.
GmbH.
Okay.
GmbH.
Which is German
company as well. And they are into those polishing machines, right? Ground polishing and other machines.
Right.
And cutters जो होते हैं उस पे है. But India में they are into some of the heavy auto engineering parts, cranks and other stuff.
Got it.
There. So best thing is that once they exit, it becomes a subsidiary of Coromandel Group. Earlier it was a joint venture with 25%.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Unless Coromandel is picking up some stake in the OFS.
Sajeet sir, why is Tata Motors going for demerger? Why this useless financial engineering when the main problem is lack of volume growth?
Interesting. I think I should tell the producers to put that interview of PB Balaji here so that they can listen to it. They're talking about.
जवाब दो.
They're talking about.
Interview plug मत करो आप.
मैं interview plug करूँगा ही करूँगा. Simple.
Last 1 minute, Sajeet sir, बोलो.
Simple सी बात. CV business is a 12% margin business which is growing at a very healthy rate, and they are trying to ramp up the small and medium commercial vehicle segment where they have lost some market share. In the domestic business, they had a problem of hatchbacks where they're coming out with Altroz new and Tiago का नया लेकर आ रहे हैं hatchback का, तो वो उसको plug कर रहा है. They are the only auto company globally in terms of JLR who has met their guidance. Others have cut their guidance. And JLR has become net debt free. Tata Motors standalone, which is a domestic company, was net debt free 2 years back. So they have a $3.8 billion pound capex program which JLR has, and they're saying that everything will be funded through internal accruals. 401,000 units we saw last year. They think that they will almost do that or better that.
Okay.
So I think they're betting a big thing on EV, JLR and domestic volume growth for PV and CV के लिए अलग. क्यों कर रहे हैं? Because CVs का वैल्यूशन अलग होता है और वो प्रॉफिटेबल बिजनेस है और PV का वैल्यूशन अलग अलग मिलता है. So that's one thing, and they have a global portfolio of JLR which adds little bit of tailwind for them in terms of volumes and profitability. So I think that's one of the things which they're looking at.
Okay.
और कौन सा क्षितिज
लास्ट क्वेश्चन सर, आप चूज करो.
नहीं, एक तो होल्डिंग कंपनी पे बात कर रहे थे.
नहीं, वो तो हो गया ना हमने. हाँ, लास्ट क्वेश्चन.
शशांक तिवारी, नीरज सर, उसका नीरज सर के लिए हो गया. Which sector is poised to deliver more than double-digit returns if we enter now in the market?
यार CDMO लगता है. Like over 3 year period, the commentary is so solid. And maybe metals, if China is doing so well, metals could probably do well. So that's something that people should keep in mind. But China sentiment is improving, huh?
Yeah. The US-China thing has turned the tide a little bit, by the way.
Yeah.
In the sense, we'll again seeing some ETF flows going into China again. जो पहले वहाँ से निकल रहा था. Last quarter last week or last week, the weekly outflows were around $9 billion from ETFs in China. Now I think it's again turning back after this recent 90-day pause, which is coming.
Yeah.
So that's something which is interesting. How does it change the demand scenario and supply scenario? It's little tough at this point in time.
Yeah.
And because of this, I think Indian metal companies are little scared.
Yeah, but broadly, if China does well, then metals largely should do okay. I mean, CATL, right? That IPO, biggest listing of 2025, shows that the China risk appetite is increasing, which is good news. Anyways,
एक सवाल पूछ रहे आपसे कि नोमोरा और मैक्वारी के रिसर्च रिपोर्ट्स हम कैसे देख सकते हैं? आप NDTVProfit.com पढ़िए,
वहाँ पे मैक्वारी रिपोर्ट आता है?
रिपोर्ट आता नहीं है, हम उसकी
सिनॉप्सिस देते हैं
ना.
अच्छा, देखो
आप सर जो फ्लैग करते हैं सुबह कि ये अच्छा है, ये अच्छा है.
हाँ, that's a good idea. NDTV Profit. या फिर हमारी चैनल देखिए, हम रिपोर्ट कार्ड है. No, tune in at 9:05. We show one of the key brokerage calls of the day, so maybe that helps. Very interesting. Guys, from Vishy, Sajeet and me, thank you so much for tuning in. Much appreciated.
See you tomorrow. अभी तो आता, 1 साल भी नहीं हुआ इसका.
लोग तो अहमदाबाद में